On today's podcast episode, we're going to wrestle through a question just about generations. I got my good buddy Chase Hogan here with us. He's our student minister here at Connect Christian Church. Chase, a lot of times when we're talking to people, different generations of people get thrown under the bus. Like when I was growing up, it was millennials. Millennials got thrown under the bus. And then we moved on to throwing Gen Zers under the bus because they're weird. They did the Tide Pod challenge stuff.
And then we would make fun of the boomers and the people that were older than us.
Yeah. And so right now that we have this new generation, my daughter's generation, and to my son, which is Gen Alpha. It's a brand new generation. And so instead of making fun of them, I'm just curious, especially as someone who works with this age group and has more of this age group coming into his ministry, what are you looking forward to about this generation that's different than other generations? So so instead of bashing them as a people, what can we be excited about the next generation that's coming up?
Well, I think the fun thing about generational talk and things like this is you have the two extremes, right? And we kind of touched on one, the extreme of making fun of because they grew up without a cell phone or they grew up with only a cell phone. Sorry. So people who are younger than me, born past 2008, they don't know what life is like without the iPhone.
Yeah.
And that's mind-boggling to me because, yes, I'm young. Yes, people make fun of me.
But you didn't grow up with a phone in your pocket.
But yeah, I didn't grow up with a phone in my pocket. I went across the street with my buddies Trevor and Xander when I was growing up in elementary school. So it was like, you have that one extreme, but then you also have the other extreme of, but I know how to use AI pretty effectively. You know what I mean? I know how to, I grew up with it. I have some special talents with my grandparents come to me and ask me how the little box works, right? You know what I mean? So it's like you have these two extremes, and when I look towards the future, because I do have the pleasure of hanging out with a lot of students and watching them grow. I can't help but wonder, with all of the technological advancements, with all of the way that this social media and technology, because that's really what we're talking about, right? That's a big part of the next generation and what it's going to look like.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see how we use that to our benefit for Jesus.
Yeah.
Really, because my first and foremost thing, what I've been called to do is tell the next generation of students and the next generation of leaders. I've been called to teach them about Jesus and to teach them how to teach Jesus, right? And so, part of the thing that I have to do is figure out the stuff that they're in and the world that they're in, get into their culture and to their generation and understand the themes and things, and then orient them to, hey, this is how we can use this for Jesus. Yeah. You know what I mean? And so I'm excited to see what they even come up with, because they're capable. You know what I mean? They have their own language. They have their own ways to get about doing things, and it's pretty fascinating. I mean, I don't know what it's like to be, incredibly old and looking at really young people, but I do know what it's like a little bit to see in the next generation and not know what the heck is going on.
Yeah.
But watch them do it anyways.
So you brought up a cool point, and I think we should talk about it a little bit. I've been researching this a little bit, especially since I have a child in this demographic now. Your generation to my generation, the 10 years in there, it seemed to be because they had the phone or the internet in their back pocket, they kind of just believed anything on the internet. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I would also say there was a certain shift, and I feel like it was recently that everybody started to believe that it was true.
Yeah.
Because I feel like everyone, when I was a kid, I remember being told all the time, don't believe everything you see on the internet. Don't believe everything you see on the internet. And now I have this disposition to believe oh, that headline is not true. That's not, the correct thing. There's no way that that's right. You know what I mean? I have that mindset, that mind frame or whatever, frame of mind or whatever. However, I'll be talking to some students and they'll come up and say some of the most the craziest headline ever. I'll be like, that's not true. And then they'll show 4 articles of saying that it's true. And I'm like, what? So I think it's gotten easier to believe that the internet is true. And you find truth on the internet, which I think is very dangerous.
Well, so I guess what I was going to follow up with that is, and you're starting to hit on it, is that I feel like Gen Alpha, this generation that's rising up, because of the generation that came before them that had a tendency to believe just kind of whatever was out there, is a generation that is questioning everything. And it's annoying. I'm gonna be honest with you, it's really annoying sometimes. But I think there's a really cool pursuit of truth. Like they almost they've almost flipped the script, and so they flipped the script in such a way that they don't just believe unless they can prove it. Like, no, I have 4 different sources to prove. Yeah. And they're doing their homework now.
Yeah.
And because of that, they're coming to church and they're asking questions because they want to pursue the truth. Are you seeing any of that in your interactions with this age group?
Well, yeah. I mean, you've got some people, like I've got students that are asking all kinds of different questions in middle school. Like, there's a couple of boys that I get the pleasure of discipling on a kind of one-on-one or a small group kind of basis, and absolutely love them. They're middle school boys to a T. They joke off. They make fart jokes. It's hilarious, and they have all of that encompassing them. But when I say, hey, let's get serious about something for a second, they ask me questions about like, hey, if I have faith and I find Jesus, can I like lose Jesus? And they're asking these questions, and they don't realize it, but they're talking about apostasy, right? They're talking about whether or not they can actually lose their faith or lose their salvation. And it's like, you're 12, you're 14, you're 13.
I didn't worry about apostasy as a 12-year-old.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
What are you talking about? And you start off the conversation with, are dinosaurs real? And then you talk about the theory of evolution and like where all of this comes in. And then you've got, the biblical account of the 7 days of creation, which is truth, right? Like that is how the world came to be. But yet they're confirming it in their way, and you can't always, like as an older adult person, you can't always figure out why they're going about the way that they're doing it. But you're right, they're looking for the truth, and we have the truth, and that's amazing. And I can't wait to see what life looks like for them in a couple of years.
Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing that with us.
Yeah.
Hey, if you have any more questions about just the next generation, Chase is not like a doctorate in this. He doesn't have that. But I do think that spending time with a generation kind of makes you an expert on the generation. And Chase spends all of his time with this generation, pouring into them, loving on them. So if you want to submit questions about like how do we disciple the next generation? How do we meet them where they're at? Because we are currently living in a time frame that has more generations alive than ever before. And I think it's hard to figure out how do we cross those generational gaps to build disciples. So if you're interested in learning about that, I know Chase would love to talk to you more about that. Church, until we see each other again, you are sent. Have a great day.